Okay, hi, this is David Sereda, and today we're taking questions about the huge transformation of my company and technology. And my new website is davidsereda.co, and that's not .com, that's .co, like Colorado. And that's because you know who hijacked me everywhere and hacked me everywhere and stole all of my technology and made it
Yeah. So
out of.
he just split up. That's why I don't have the frequencies on YouTube anymore, because the guy hijacked, the marketing Chinese guy hijacked his platform.
Right. Last week I did a webinar, and I talked a lot about the initial phase of the transfer and why we don't want to mess around with somebody who just invents frequencies. So the first thing I'm going to say is that there's very few people in the pulsed electromagnetic field device and Rife healing therapeutic techniques that understands the meaning and the profundity of accurate frequencies. And to be clear, when Royal Rife was looking under the world's first 30,000 times microscope, he's tuning through literally thousands and thousands of frequency fine-tuned numbers, and nothing is occurring. And then finally he arrives at a frequency that disrupts the virus that he's looking at. And then if he passes that frequency just a little bit, it doesn't disrupt it anymore. Now, it's the same thing with radio astronomers when they're perusing the heavens and they're listening to the sounds of the cosmos. Most of the frequency bands yield absolutely nothing. And once in a while, you hit a precise frequency that is very, very meaningful. And in the world of music scales, and I made a whole video about the impurities of our current music scale and the Pythagorean music scale, which led to our music scale and Kepler's music scale. And you can see that to arrive at the point that you can have 12 musical notes that can shift up and down through octaves, and that when you ascend through the tones in a music scale, you have a harmony in the space between note A, B, C, D, F, G, and the flats and the sharps. So that literally took millions of years of human evolution, because humans have been on the planet for millions of years. And so when I looked at the Pythagorean music scale and the Kepler music scale, I said, what about all the empty spaces in between those frequencies? Is there any harmony there? And then what I did is I calculated mathematically all of the wavelengths up from the subterranean to the base of the earth to the capstone of the Great Pyramid of Egypt as wavelengths and converted them to frequencies. And I found a superior music scale that had 3 actual scales of 120 tones each that fit within the range where humans hear, 20 to 20,000 waves per second. That's where cognitive hearing starts, at 20 hertz, and most people can't hear 20,000 hertz. And so I remember when I was a kid, in Modesto, California, the hearing people came with their vans, and we put headphones on, and they asked us, if we could hear this tone, you push a button. If you hear that tone, you push a button. So that's what frequency is. Frequency is a highly, highly difficult and respected art form. The search for the most perfect music scale in history began in ancient times. And the East Indian music scales of the goddess of music, Saraswati, and also the music scales of the ancient Greeks and the music scales that led to today. There are subtle differences in worldwide music scales, but today what we have is a very limiting series of frequencies to work with in this alternative healing world. I have personally decoded the frequencies of meaningful spiritual temples, the 9 planets and their respective octaves. I've looked at the the frequencies of the numbers of manifestation. For example, when Jesus manifests the 153 loaves and fishes, the number 153 is what's known as a triangle and hexagonal number in what are called polygonal numbers. Polygonal just means triangle, square, pentagon, five-pointed star, six-pointed star, hexagon, all the way to 14 polygonal point forms. But every polygonal shape or geometry has a number, a code of numbers. And I converted those to frequencies because they actually build multiple hemispheres of awareness within your energy field of awareness. So you're actually building sacred geometries within your nervous system. Your nervous system memorizes frequencies in the same way you memorize songs and you memorize melodies, which are series of tones within the spectrum of a music scale. Your nervous system memorizes frequencies, and with it, it builds neural pathways to states of consciousness. So when you listen to your favorite song that makes you feel this incredible emotion, those are neural pathways that are memories. So if I play a song that's meaningful to me, like something from the 60s, because I was born in 1961, my neural pathways know how to guide me to the pictures and images and the emotions and even smells that I remember from when I first heard that song, right? And so when you create frequencies that I've decoded of sacred temples and star systems and the Great Pyramids and polygonal numbers of manifestation and Pythagorean infinities and prime numbers. I mean, I have so many frequencies I've decoded that what you're doing is kind of like in the movie Matrix, where Neo downloads the software and all of a sudden 2 minutes later he can fly a helicopter. You see, your nervous system is going to build very profound neural pathways based on the frequencies you give it. Now, here's the problem. If you have somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they're just throwing abject, which means non-subjective, meaningless numbers because they happen to fit in these different categories of the human nervous system. So in the human nervous system, you have delta brain waves that are 0 to just under 5 hertz. So that's the deepest part of the brain. And the deepest healing state of the body and nervous system is delta. Children know how to go into deep, deep delta. But my mathematics training tells me that, okay, you can't just give somebody 5 hertz because it's upper delta. You can't do that. And that's what the people who make these other PEMF devices do, is they'll just give you a number because it fits in delta. And they want to put a person in delta because you can heal in delta. So you can't do that. So what I do is I take, for example, the golden ratio, which the entire universe, from spiraling seashells to spiraling galaxies to the spiraling of DNA, the Fibonacci golden ratio number, which is 1 to 1.61803398887, because the decimals go forever. That is a meaningful ratio as a harmonic. So what I did is I built a golden ratio brainwave series based on the phi golden ratio. So I don't just give you 5 hertz. I give you the golden ratio times the golden ratio times the golden ratio, and then you get into the theta part of the brain. And the theta part of the brain is where our Earth resonates at. Our Earth, according to Tesla and Schumann, resonates at the 7.83 fundamental and other multiple frequencies within, some people argue, within the golden ratio of each other proportionally. The Earth resonates in this spectra of frequencies that happens to have the fundamental number in the theta part of the brain. And that's why when you walk barefoot in the sand or on the earth and the grass, you start to feel a real deep relaxation. Like, we dream, rapid eye movement and dreaming occurs in the theta band. Most humans do not dream in delta because the wavelengths are really long and slow. So you're way too relaxed to dream in delta. but in theta, you dream. It's interesting that we dream at the frequency of our own planet and on either side of it. And then you go into, so you have delta, you have theta, and then you have alpha waves. And alpha waves are where we become coherent and aware. And if you've ever noticed, like the early movies used to use just under 24 frames per second, and that's because 24 frames a second is is getting into the between theta and the gamma part of the brain. So that's where the brain it's relaxed, but it's animated. You know, it's not sleep because technically theta is sleeping and dreaming, but you can be awake in theta, but not just barely awake, you know, in that state of in between and waking. And then the gamma part of the brain peaks in around, you have the beta part of the brain and then the gamma part of the brain. So the beta is the high focus part of the brain and gamma is super focused part of the brain. And what I found interesting is the wavelengths and the frequencies of all of our 9 spherical planets at their equators correspond to all of the 5 major brainwave categories. So that would mean the planet frequencies and their octaves that I decoded are meaningful, very meaningful, because there's an actual energy there. Whereas if I just guess frequencies, and a lot of people do, I got to tell you, there's a lot of people just throwing out numbers, and they don't have any experience about what they're doing. And then you understand that the frequencies of the 9 planets also correspond to the different states of consciousness that we go into. Now, the longer a wave is like delta, which is a very slow wave, 0 to 4 or 5 waves a second, time goes by super fast, right? So you can have a whole hour go by in delta just like that. So if you know how to go into deep delta in meditation, like I do, I've actually had my brain wired up to an EEG machine, and I could consciously move from delta to theta. And the guy who did my brain waves thought, like, this is highly unusual that a person can do this. And I said, all I'm doing is I'm shifting my awareness from my head to my heart. And guess where your heart is? It's just over in the relaxed state, 1.1 to 1.2 to 1.3 waves per second. So when you shift from the head awareness into the heart awareness, you can move into delta. And delta is incredibly blissful. It's very relaxing, extremely relaxing. And your body will start to produce enormous waves of ecstasy that are very smooth, beautiful waves of ecstasy when you're coherent in delta. And babies know how to do this. Now, it's interesting that the Earth is in theta and Mars is in alpha. It's on the border of alpha and beta. So that Mars is an alpha planet, which means it's high focus. Mercury, you know, when Mercury goes retrograde, it means it goes behind the sun 4 times a year, because Mercury experiences 4 point something years for every Earth year. So when Mercury goes retrograde, you lose this upper beta gamma part of the brain function. And there's a reason that nature does this, because then our other functions take over when Mercury goes into retrograde. So Mercury happens to be almost exactly 20 hertz. And guess what Rife discovered as one of the greatest toning frequencies to prime the body? You can see it in the Rife booklet of all the frequencies. You're going to see 20 hertz. He requires it for multiple illnesses, because 20 hertz is Mercury, but it's also where you cognitively start hearing. So we cognitively start hearing at 20 hertz. So then we work our way up and we go to the big planets like Saturn and Jupiter, and those are delta planets. They're super long, deep, blissful consciousness waves. And then you get to Uranus and Neptune, they're still delta planets. And then Pluto is a gamma. It's just like our moon. Our moon is gamma, and gamma makes you awake. So when the moon is full, we're getting a higher, an increase in amplitude and gamma brainwave activity, which is why people have a hard time sleeping during the full moon periods. And then when the light of the moon is not reflecting back to the earth as much, we start sleeping deeper and deeper. So all of those frequencies are available that I've decoded personally myself based on precise NASA measurements of the 9 planets. And also I've been working with moonlets, and what I have not released are the frequencies of star systems that are all based on accurate radiuses of multiple star systems, and they're very, very profound energies. So when your nervous system memorizes frequencies, even though you can't hear them, but they're going into your nervous system magnetically through the wands, the coils, or the staffs, you're building neural pathways to a meaningful frequency domain. Now, anybody who's making up frequencies and is putting you in jeopardy, because you can build neural pathways that lead to complete voids of no spiritual or healing content places. And right. So now Royal Rife gave us a list of frequencies that are called destructive frequencies to pathogens and viruses. Okay, a destructive frequency is a frequency that disrupts a virus. But when you're done working with a destructive frequency, you should always end a session with a constructive frequency. So you don't just do a Rife destructive frequency and walk away. I think Rife made a great mistake in doing that. You don't want to leave a person with those frequencies and let them walk away. So you should always do the sound of the sun or one of your favorite like pyramid frequencies, you know, afterwards to recalibrate the nervous system into a harmony, or Pythagorean infinities, or you can even do the Great Pyramid music scale frequencies through your wand or coil, or my different devices that I have. So, and those, the Great Pyramid music scale frequencies are soon to come on the Google Drive. So anybody who buys a staff, a wand, or a coil, see, I don't charge you money for the frequencies. Those are included in the price. So if you go to somebody else's website, and you know whose website, and you see a lower price on a wand, that's because he charges you a fortune for all of his fake frequencies that he's going to add to your bill later on. But I don't do that. All of my frequencies are included in the price. So with that, let's take some questions, because I've taken up about 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So let's start with some questions. Is there anything?
Well, I got one from our list that somebody was asking. Somebody was asking about the field that comes off the wand and how they feel that it comes off the sides and not the face. So do they point the face to the body, or doesn't it matter?
Okay, so here's your wand. Let's say this is a new wand that I'm working on, made out of pure quartz. The field of the wand is like a torus donut. It looks like this, but it's doing that on all sides holographically. And so when you point it like this, you're at the end of the electromagnetic field, right? Which is pulling or pushing, right? So you're in the vortex of it this way. But this way, the magnetic lines are stronger on the sides, but there's still profound activity on the two poles of the wand, either the base or the top. So the new wands, the level 2 and 3 wands, are going to have something very profound on the sides. And you'll see that in the pictures that are coming very soon. It both the silver and the pure silver and pure gold options. And they're expensive because we're not using cheap gold plating, which isn't even real gold. We're using real gold and real pure silver on the disc, on the face. It'll be pure gold or pure silver. And then there's the 3 star quills, 6 star quills behind the rubies on the face, and those are all made of pure silver or pure gold or pure silver and gold fill. And gold fill is significantly deeper than gold plating. So that should answer that question. Um, any other questions that people have?
Well, there's housekeeping questions like the frequencies they bought before versus the frequencies they bought now. So what I'm going to propose is that anyone who's bought frequencies before and is concerned about them, get in touch with me and I'll send you a link to the Google Drive.
The way I've always done this, when I heard that Wong was making an app, to make an app, you have to squish the bit depth of your frequency files down to nothing to convert it into an MP3. And so I didn't want to do that because that lowers the quality of the frequency. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to get any results with bit depth this big versus this big. But it's significantly better to use the uncompressed. So what I do is, like, I have an Apple phone here, right? So you can download apps that actually run frequencies. And the one I use is iFunction Generator by Black Cat Systems. And what I like about this one is it's probably the most professional frequency app there is I can do multiple frequencies at the same time and change from sine wave to sharp sawtooth waves to square waves and triangle waves. And I can control the volume on the left and the right side. So this is the most sophisticated app there is, but it only works on an Apple device. It doesn't work on a Galaxy device. So whether you're a Mac person or not, you may want to get yourself even just a little iPad, and you can download the frequencies and you put them in playlists. You create a new playlist in iTunes, or you can create a new playlist in Windows Media Player. Then you drag and drop the frequencies on the different playlists that I've created on the Google Drive into there. And as soon as you hit play, you make sure the volume is all the way up on your device, and then the device connects at the back. The mini cable connects to the back of your amplifier, which is two RCA cables, a red and a black. Those goes in the back of your amp, and coming out of the amp speaker, left or right, is your wand, or you can have a coil conversely on the other channel and run them both at the same time. So you can get a really good magnet, a good neodymium magnet like these are gold-plated ones. And if you hold it next to the wand or the coil, only on the lower frequencies you're going to feel the pulse. And the purpose of that is just to let you know that it's actually transmitting. You can also spend a lot of money, like I do, on really good meters, and you can see how big or small the field size is. And I want to take on the issue of Wong's claim that the new wand that I actually designed and I scrapped it. He went and built it, but I scrapped it because what he did is he took out the tourmaline core. That's an activated, drilled out tourmaline core because it's expensive to manufacture, and that's part of what gives you the healing effect. Now, he just took a picture saying, look, you know, my new wand is 51% stronger. And he's lying to everybody because I know how these things work. You can't actually do that, but you can trick an audience by just changing frequencies. Higher frequencies, the magnetic field shrinks, but the light wave aspect, which are your radio waves, increases, right? And you don't measure those in a magnetic field meter. You measure those in a radio wave meter, which is measuring in watts per meter squared versus measuring Tesla or milligauss on a magnetic field. So he can just trick you just by changing the frequency. And the other thing is that the other way to build your magnetic field up is to put in more wire of a thicker or lower gauge number, but then he doesn't have enough resistance in his wand, so it's gonna burn out everybody's amplifiers that he's told them to run with it. So You can't buy those wands from this guy. You can't buy any of his stuff because. So Pravinder, did you have any questions? Because you mentioned in the beginning you did.
There's the question that I get asked even now to date is the difference between the wand and the coil, and why is one shaped one way, the other shaped the other way? What's the difference? And as a follow-up question, can you use the coils with the healing frequencies as well?
Well, first you can use the coils with any of the frequencies.
Okay,
There are
that's
healing
explain.
frequencies that are disruptive to virus and pathogens, and there's harmonizing field frequencies, and there's frequencies that can raise your state of consciousness, and not just your state of consciousness, but the actual consciousness of your entire building. So if you're in an apartment building, you're going to be affecting the whole building in a beneficial way. So the shape of the wand, again, the magnetic, it's not the shape of the device, it's the shape of the field. So the wand produces a big donut. So just think of a giant donut magnetic field. Now the coil, because it's a vortex pyramid angle winding, it spins the energy at the speed of light, but it's also producing a very sophisticated donut because the magnetic field, if the wire's this way, the magnetic field is 90 degrees to the wire, holographically in all directions. So when you look at your vortex field, what you're creating looks like a spiral galaxy. That's what the field looks like. But it's spinning at the speed of light, and it's spinning just 30% less than the speed of light inside of the copper wire. So you've got these time differentials, vortex energy, and it goes out in all directions at the speed of light. So you're actually participating in the creation of the universe in a way. You're creating a mini galactic consciousness field with your coils. And now my new coils, I just posted a video the other day on the channel. My new little 14-inch coils that are 7 levels high, again, they broke all previous records. And I'm using 2 what are called binary frequencies. So binaural audio frequencies are known for giving the brain a sense of holographic awareness rather than narrow band focus, myopic kind of awareness. You now go into holographic stereo awareness, and then in my frequency list, you'll see it's called the cube. The cube builds binary, trinary, quadra, penta, 5. It goes all the way into multiple hemispheres of neural point fields. So it's building holograms of awareness within your nervous system. And that's the point ultimately of sacred geometries, is that a sacred geometry, like a great pyramid, is a hologram. It's holographic. So your awareness, you see, this is part of the fall of the Garden of Eden, as Christ told me in person in a vision many years ago, is that the fall from grace was, don't participate in this knowledge of good and evil, for in the day you do, you will surely die, right? So in the knowledge of good and evil, see, people inadvertently sided with the serpent in the parable of the knowledge of good and evil, thinking it was a good thing. Now look, humans know the difference between good and evil, right? But God actually said to Adam and Eve, never take in the knowledge of good and evil, or you're going to die. So what happens is we go into either or consciousness rather than holographic awareness, that I can see from this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, all at the same time. So the brain went from the unified field to either or. And the problem with either or awareness is you might get 2 or 3 people to agree on one point, but if you have enough conversations, you're going to start disagreeing, right? Why do we disagree? Because we said, oh, it happened this way. No, I saw the car accident. No, it happened this way. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. You see, that's either or. And my dad, who's a PhD in psychology from UC Berkeley, really gets into what it means to understand non-either or thinking, right? Why do we go to school and we say, we give people multiple choice and we say there's only one correct answer? What do you mean there's only one correct answer? There's hundreds of correct answers, but we're arrogant and we say it can only be this way. It can't be both, right? And it's the same thing when you're in court and a lawyer is trying to say to you, answer the question yes or no. And then you say, no, I'm not going to answer the question yes or no, because a yes or no answer can be defamatory. So it's this is what humanity did. We went into either or instead of holographic awareness fields. And the either or created a conflict over good and evil, which is right and which is wrong. And then we became neurotic. Oh my God. And then Adam and Eve sewed the fig leaves and covered themselves up. And God, when they covered themselves up, God says, oh my God, they're judging themselves. They're judging their nudity. And that means they took in the knowledge of good and evil. And so God doesn't kick them out of paradise. The conflict itself, they're now in conflict. And no, as you get thousands and then millions and billions of human beings, no two fields of awareness can agree. So a single religion will divide multiple times. And no religion is unified because everyone disagrees over what they think they're agreeing on. They actually disagree. And that's the poison of the knowledge of good and evil, is it creates either or polarity. So when I'm giving you frequencies that are binary, trinary, quadra, penta, hexa, all the way, and building more and more neural point field awareness, you become a holographic being, and you're not trapped in this either or mentality. You're starting to see the big picture. You're seeing it from behind, from above, from all different neural point fields, all at the same time. And each point in the field radiates outward. And that's how you get into collective field-based consciousness. And that's what frequencies can do. See, frequencies, any two frequencies anywhere in the universe set up communication. So any two forms of oscillating frequencies, that's how radio works. So you have a receiver on 97.1 FM and a transmitter at 97.1 FM, right? So FM means frequency modulated radio. AM means amplitude modulated radio. But any two frequencies, whether they're amplitude or frequency modulated, they're in communication with each other. So what happens when large groups of people start to resonate at the same frequencies, or their neural field has got millions of neural pathways built? What it means is they can understand each other now instead of not understand each other. Because two different beings that have different frequencies, they can't understand each other. They drive each other crazy because they're in two different frequencies. They're never going to cross, their wavelengths will never meet up. But as we build less and less either or thinking, binary thinking that it has to be either or rather than stereo at the same time, then we're going to increase our awareness fields and we're going to solve the biggest problems in history. But the way to do this is to frequency train. So the frequencies I've decoded are not like right frequencies. Royal right frequencies are for disrupting a virus. But my frequencies, and they're not mine because I just measured nature and I measured the sacred temples all over the world. And I found these frequencies. So whoever designed these temples, God, goddess, whoever did it, they're the ones who deserves the credit. I'm just converting it to a frequency. And then when I experience that frequency in my nervous system for a couple of weeks or a month, it's very. And frequencies don't just give you an experience, they open neural pathways to doorways in your mind that you've never known before, because you've never known this frequency before. So that's why all my frequencies, I don't intuit a number and say, this is I'm just going to guess and give you this frequency and see what happens to you. Now, it's true, there might be somebody who's really intuitive out there and they have a dream or they have a vision and they get a number. Well, they should do that frequency, and that's what you do. You just use your app, your frequency app, and you punch in the number and turn the volume up, and it's coming out of your wand or your coil, and you'll find out what that frequency does, right? So I'm not saying mine are the only frequencies in existence. And there's a few other people out there that are very progressive at designing frequencies that I personally think are really on to something as well. It's not just David Sereda frequencies. And so once you have your coil and your wand and you've worked with my frequencies and your nervous system's learned all mine, well, there's some other ones out there, and I'm building new ones right now. I have tons of them.
This is a question from one of our group members. What is the difference in the older coil and the new in reference to sound wave speed or distance or wave quality?
Okay, the new coil, because I calculate both resistance and the power and the magnetic field. So one of my goals is to build a bigger, more comprehensive field to counteract the 5G, 4G, and 3G microwave networks where all the cellular and the internet data is being transmitted around the planet. Because those systems are not using harmonic frequencies or intervals to transmit data. So it's not what there were studies done at the Electric Power Research Institute, and they go way back into the 70s and 80s and 90s. And the studies were done by the United States government and the Canadian government participating, and some European countries participating. And what they found is that radio waves, radio frequencies have no negative side effect to the body. However, microwaves do, and they questionably do, because you can emit microwaves, which is what your cell phone and the internet is running on. One person might get cancer or might get some disruptive illness and another one doesn't. And because the effects are not uniform, they say that the technology is questionable, and that's why they allow the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, gives these companies permission to run and bombard us with microwaves everywhere we go. So, but the important thing also is the French virologist, I think it's Luc Montagnier, who won the Nobel Prize and shared it for the discovery of the AIDS virus. He went on to discoveries that definitely border the New Age world, where he proved that DNA can transmit and receive frequencies. And because you have DNA in the nucleus of every cell in your body, you're a transmitter receiver. And what does that mean? What he proved is all of the data that's being transmitted across the planet right now at the speed of light among you have to understand that there's scientific proof that we're receiving and transmitting data, and that's a dangerous thing when it comes to living in giant electronic fields that are being, that are affecting our DNA and affecting our consciousness. Because if your DNA can receive a frequency, then it's going to affect your consciousness. So the question is, when we say raise our frequencies, what frequency are you talking about? Because the numbers can be, I have star frequencies that are over 14 decimals in accuracy. So what do you mean, what frequency? Because when you're dialing on a radio, you can be a couple of decimals off and miss a radio station. So when it comes to the cosmos, you can't just throw meaningless numbers at people. So that's why it's very important in this pulsed electromagnetic field movement that we're introducing disruptive frequencies discovered by Royal Rife. And then Hulda Clark had these electronic zappers. And I want to talk about her zappers. I don't believe it's safe to electrocute the body with any more electricity than the body has on the skin. So if you get a common voltmeter and you go to your millivolt settings and you connect your voltmeter, do this yourself because you can get one of these at the hardware store. And and wet your fingertips and look at your body's millivolts, and you say, how much current does the body have? It doesn't, it's in the microamps. So volts times amps is watts. So if you're not even 1 microamp and you've got a few millivolts, then you shouldn't electrocute the body with any more power than that. The problem with the Hodokar zappers is she's zapping people with 3, 6, and even 9 volts. And I wouldn't do that. I think it's disruptive to the nervous system to electrocute the nervous system, again, with frequencies. Her frequencies are disruptive to viruses. So you don't want to end a healing session with just a disruptive frequency. You want to harmonize after, right? So Rife is a disruptive field frequency guy, and that's important when we're treating disease and pathogens. But then you want to harmonize the energy field with and I like infinities, pyramid frequencies, and the golden ratio brainwave series, and a whole bunch of other ones for harmonies. Question?
Okay, so that brings me to the next question. This is from Anthony Miller, and he actually has a question regarding the infinity frequencies, and he's asking, what do the letters mean, A, B, and C, etc.? And I know how I use infinity frequencies, but I would like to know, how do you use infinity frequencies, and what did you design them for?
Okay, so the Greek mathematician Archimedes found that ratios between certain numbers were finite. Like you could have a ratio between 1 and 1.5. That's a ratio. That's called a finite ratio. Now, ratios are the relationship between one frequency or measurement and another. So that is the most fundamentally important thing in a harmonic music scale. So if you look at the chakras in the body and you see each of one of them as a tone, if the ratio between my heart chakra and my throat chakra is incorrect, the two waves are going to crash into each other, and only a little bit of the energy is going to communicate between the two. But if they're in harmonic proportions, then the energy will flow and flow and flow through the system. So with the letters that I put on the infinity tracks, that's just like giving it track A, B, C, D, F, G, right? So track 1 is a ratio of 1 to 1.11111 frequencies, right? So there's two numbers, and then I build multiple numbers that are all together at the same time that have a ratio of 1 to 1111, and the ones go forever, right? And that's why they're called infinite ratios, whereas 1 to 1.25 is finite. It ends. It's just boom, the door is closed. But an infinite ratio just opens. It goes forever, right? And so just like pi is an infinite mathematical expanding expression, and so is phi, the golden ratio, is infinite expansion. There are a lot of ratios that are finite. So the next track is a 1 to 1.22222, and then the next track is 1 to 1.33333s, and 1 to 1.4444s, and my nervous system just loves the infinities. It just feels like you're just opening infinite pathways. So I like to run through all of them in a single session, and it's creating infinite pathways. You see, a child, when they're born, the studies done on their neurons and their neural pathways are infinite. But as we get older, and as soon as a child enters the school system, they lose over 90% of their infinite pathways. And neural pathways lead to not only higher states of consciousness, but higher states of creativity, where whatever your respective field of study or your job is, you're going to be able to problem solve and solution solve and creative insight way better than somebody who has all their neural pathways narrowband focused. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I use that frequency as part of the practitioner course, one of the frequencies that they're supposed to do for a week, for an hour a day. And I've had amazing results from the students who've taken the course. And one particular student actually transcended all her chakras and was able to, you know, connect with infinite source, whatever you want to call it. So I find that this, and a lot of the people have refer to these frequencies as fun. I don't know why, but
That's great. No, that's so wonderful to hear.
like
Because
it's
that's
almost
what
like
they are.
playful.
Consciousness is playful. See, we become
Yeah.
narrow band focused in our jobs, and we become myopic. You know, we can only see what's in front of us. But a child is like infinite play. Like this morning, I was doing all this month. I'm doing my breath of God. So for 45 minutes, I'm expand the chest, breathing. I'm breathing and I'm drinking my yerba mate, and I'm just having so much fun with my kids because I'm getting really, really high from the vibrations. And after you do the breathing and then you do some frequencies, they just make you feel so open. And you can really relate to your children's because they have these, they don't see a room the way we see a room. Like my children see a sofa as something you bounce on and jump on. I see it as something you sit on, right?
Yeah.
Their minds have more potentials than that. They want to fly, right? So, and
Yeah.
they'll
So
so
I would,
that's what we want to do again. We've lost the ability to think because we went into narrow band either or consciousness.
right. Okay. Okay. Thank you for answering that. And so I think we have, Charles, how much time do we have left?
Not much. We probably have to wrap it up here because I want to keep it under an hour for the recording. And
Okay.
this
So let me ask you one more question because a lot of people have asked me this question. So I would like to ask you. Since the light stream frequencies correspond to some of the natural frequencies of the brain, could playing one single light stream frequency interfere with the natural changing rhythms of the brain? So he's asking this question about what happens when we sleep. For example, if he plays the alpha brainwave frequency, will it interfere with the brain's natural brainwave processing during sleep?
Well, first of all, a lot of people can't sleep. There's a huge insomnia problem, and that's due to stress because we got to produce so much money to stay alive, to pay the bills, to keep the machine going. So people are lying down and they can't sleep. So you can use the theta or delta band frequencies to assist you with deep sleep. But nothing, see, as your brain becomes less rigid, that I only operate at these frequencies and I just don't go outside of this area because I only understand this and this is my comfort zone. But as you start to loosen up and you start to find that there's bliss and there's ecstasy and there's love and expanded consciousness by expanding your frequency base, then there's no disruption. There's just learning neural pathways, how to go to this place, how to go to that place, how to go to this place in consciousness. So when it's time to sleep, if you have problems sleeping, you might need some assistive frequencies. But if you don't have problems sleeping, then you might want to not just fall asleep and conk out and waste 8 hours of your life. You might want to try some of the creative frequencies because they not only affect your dreams, they affect how you feel when you're sleeping. How you feel when you're sleeping is so proportional to what you may dream. And when I tell people, you know, about creative dreaming, which is the next level of my technology, and being able to dream in other star systems, they say, well, dreaming is a waste of time because I got to make money. And I'm like, what do you think is all around you? All these buildings, this chair, somebody dreamed this up in their head. And in fact, some of the most creative people in the world, the guys who invented Apple Computer. In fact, I saw this incredible episode about uh, the founder of Microsoft, the two guys that founded Microsoft, and how they were deeply into meditation, how they went to India and studied with gurus. Stephen Jobs was into meditation. In fact, he wasn't really into making money. His life didn't reflect somebody who was into luxury and walking around purple robes and smoking cigars. He wasn't that kind of guy at all. He was into meditation, this guy. a lot of people don't know that about Stephen Jobs and his partner. That these guys were into consciousness, and it's too bad they never met me while they were alive, because I might have been able to turn around Stephen Jobs' cancer condition. So this is the future. We live in electromagnetic fields. We're telecommunicating electromagnetically. I have protocols for cancer, Lyme disease, and neurological diseases that include taking hot water with a series of electrolytes to give your body the materials it needs to become a frequency powerful being, right? So when you do frequencies with the wand and the coil, and you don't have electrolytes in your body, you're getting a fraction of the benefits again. So you need to take magnesium every day. You need to take potassium every day. You need to take good quality salt, like Himalayan salt has minerals in it. And you need to take germanium, which is in garlic and reishi mushrooms, or you can supplement germanium. And I have a good website that's in the chat forum where you can get liquid quality gold, silver, and electrolytes in your body. So you've got the fuel you need to vibrate at a higher frequency. And when the body vibrates at a higher frequency, you have a better chance of conquering disease. I don't want to say it's proven in every case that you're going to conquer your unwellness in the body, but you have a way better chance. We've had tremendous results with the wands and the frequencies and the coils and the frequencies and even the staffs. Like, since I've had my staff running 2 years now, and I'm going to do a whole webinar on the staff. Actually, we're going to have to do a whole one just on the staffs, because I was with my kids. I have little kids, and I'm getting close to 60 years old, and they bring home every virus there is. And as soon as I put the staff in the house, nobody's gotten the flu. And I was getting the flu every year because my kids bring it home. So I
think that's a really good idea, because we have a lot of clients now who have the staff, and they really, I think they need specifics about how to use it.
Yeah,
I know since you told me how to use it, I've had amazing experiences.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole webinar on the staff to do it correctly. But I found it surprising because the staff only runs at higher frequencies, and I've got multiple. So you have the step frequencies that people start with the staff. They start with the 1.111 megahertz at 11 volts, the 2.121 megahertz at 12 volts, all the way to 9.191 megahertz at 19 volts. But after you've done the frequency Stairmaster, if you will, to step raise your vibration, then I have master specific frequency numbers. And there's hardly anybody who's even done those yet. And those are the most profound numbers to work with, but I'm not going to be giving those out on a webinar.
No, and you shouldn't. But
no,
I gotta say, like, since I've been using it, just doing the Stairmaster up and down the different frequencies, even I don't have to turn anything else on. The other day I experimented. I'm like, is it the wand? Is it the coil? Is it the staff? What is it? Like, just meditating with the staff itself, I can feel my nervous system just, I don't know if this is the right word, but opening, I would say.
Oh yeah, no, see, right now, I'm only using my staff, and now I'm getting profound level manifestations, very profound, and I'm going to talk about those. Maybe we'll do the staff next week.
There's a client who actually worked with the staff, and she also worked with the frequencies and the abundance frequencies. And her big thing was she wanted to have more abundance in her life, more money in her life, better relationship in her life, etc. And she manifested a billionaire relationship in her life.
Wow.
It was a billionaire.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's crazy.
That's incredible, yeah. Fantastic. So, okay, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to stop recording now. And hopefully this technology works and we have a recording of this. So thanks for everyone for being here, and we'll see you next time.